So there was young me. Not as innocent as I would wish, but still full of pep and trying to do the whole retail thing of selling car parts and getting an hourly wage for it. At this point in time, I worked in the part of town where people are not well off and don't tend to be terribly educated on how a car works. Most of the time I can fill them in on what they need or what to look for, and they are able to come away reasonably satisfied. This day, however, I met Dingleberry Fallopian Tubing Muffler Bearing, or DBFTMB for short. In he walks, waits in line, and ends up in front of me, looking not unlike the hind end of a platypus that's half run over by a tractor. "Hey, I need spark plugs." "Okay, what kind of car?" Shrugs. "Do you know the year, brand, or engine?" "It's blue," with an eye twitching slightly. "Is it here, or do you have the registration with you?" "No, it doesn't run, and it's not registered." "My mechanic says I need spark plugs." "Well, I need to know what kind of car you have for that. Aren't they all the same?" "No, they're pretty different. Come on, just sell me some cheap ones." Blink blink. "Okay, fine." At this point I walk in the back and grab 8 completely different spark plugs, making sure one is for a lawnmower and one is for a motorcycle before selling them to him. An hour later he comes back with the spark plugs and an old registration with the car's information. I think his mechanic convinced him that the ones he got couldn't be used. Dad equals my dad. HD equals hairdresser. Me equals moderately engaging in the mid-80s. Having moved in with my father, I decided to go through a reinvention, as one often does when going to a new high school. I discarded my polo shirts and awful off-brand jeans in favor of ripped Levi's and punk t-shirts, switched out my Billy Joel cassettes for the Dead Milkmen and similar groups, and adopted a superficial rebellious pose. I specifically took pains to change my hairstyle, cutting most of it short, but growing out my bangs so that I could spray the hell out of them and have them stick up wildly all over the place or drape them over one eye if I didn't feel like going through the trouble. Yes, it looked stupid, but for those of you in high school, trust me, you'll look back and cringe someday yourself. Dad was generally tolerant of my new tastes in music, but he had significant issues with my appearance as he saw it as reflecting badly upon himself. Numerous arguments ensued, with both of us making about equal numbers of good points and bad ones. Finally, one day, having had enough, he nearly shoved me into the car and drove me to the local hairstylist. "My stepmother's hairdresser is available." HD: "Oh, I love your bangs." Me: "Thanks." He, I gesture towards my father, wants me to cut them. "Dad, look, just cut off half. That's all I'm saying." HD gives me a sympathetic look, but he's the one paying, so she's obligated to go with it. My father steps outside, saying he's going to run a quick errand. HD gives me a "what can you do?" shrug. I think for a moment. "Me," he said, "half, right?" HD: "Right." Me: "Okay." I grab all of the bangs on the right side of my face. Me: "Cut off this half." My father came back to find the full length of bangs going down the left side of my face. She'd even styled it with a cool angle cut. At first he looked absolutely furious. Me: "You said half. You didn't say which half." He let out a deep sigh, shook his head, chuckled, paid her, and, to his credit, even gave her a decent tip. The hair was never brought up again. Only time I ever got one over on him the entire time that I lived there, but it's a pleasant memory. So a bit of backstory. Been in my job since October 2017, and whilst I enjoy aspects of it, I've had a few issues with it. Check my previous posts for context. I do what I can and am looking to leave. So back in February 2018 I found out I have a health condition that can cause me to become overtired and have constant pain in my muscles. Not that fun at all. The day after finding out, I of course passed this on to my manager, thinking this will be passed on to HR. It wasn't too much of an issue in the beginning as I was doing 6 a.m. starts, and the pain was normally dulled down by the time I had to travel into the office around 11 a.m. So as time goes on, my hours get changed to the company's standard 9-6. No warning this was happening either. By this point it's early October time, so by this point I'd have considered it important to let me know due to the health issues. The change in routine caused a multitude of issues along with the gradually changing weather. Cold weather brings unbearable pain, and I have broken down more than I care to admit over it, and I ended up having a lot of time off. Eventually I got pulled into a meeting over the amount of times I was off ill. Now going through the days off sick, I believe only 2 were unworkable, but they wouldn't allow me to work from home despite being able to perform all tasks from my home as I would in the office. Keep in mind this is December 2018, 10 months after I'd informed them of my illness. During this meeting I made our HR team aware of my illness, unaware they hadn't been passed the information. At this they booked me a visit to occupational health, and left it at that. We have a disgustingly high turnover for a support team, and this month we've had 60+ calls in a queue at once, so it has been unmanageable. I brought this up with the team and got told to work harder. Our call target for a day is 20. I was regularly doing 80+ and all for minimum wage. This of course aggravates the condition due to stress, and with illness and no sick pay I've been stressed as heck, which made me super ill. Because of this, they made sure my meeting was set up for today, March 5th, and pushed for me to return as soon as possible as the frustration was kicking in. So I went to the meeting today and all began well, ended up having a panic attack in the waiting room. This worried me as I don't often have them, but I calmed down and entered the meeting with the doctor. During this he could see how stressed out I was about the situation and how much pain I was in. He asked me to fill out a form, and then we spoke. Turns out the form was a depression and anxiety questionnaire. I've not had either since 2011, but oh boy, I topped that list. Doctor ended up signing me off for the foreseeable future, and if no adjustments are made, well, we'll save that for another time. Best part was telling my manager I won't be in for the foreseeable future due to the damage they caused. So a friend of mine who drives a Honda sedan returned to his car and got the dreaded parking ticket stuck to his windshield. He was only 2 minutes late, literally. Frustrated, he shoved the parking ticket in his pocket and drove home. Later that night, he was going to pay the fine to avoid forgetting about it and paying further penalties, and as he looked at the ticket, noticed that it was for a Mercedes-Benz. Confused, he checked the registration number. It wasn't his car. Obviously, some cheeky bastard went and stuck his parking ticket onto his windshield, thinking he would pay. As this clearly wasn't his ticket, he decided not to pay and left it at that with the police. When the notice gets sent out, he will have a couple of extra $100 on his parking ticket for failure to pay on time. Hope he hasn't moved, otherwise it's a warrant and court appearance.